Today, we're going to talk about how we build strong teams in Tomorrow Movement. And building strong teams is something that we need to be able to do really well so that we can actually recruit people into a structure. And recruitment is a big part of the cycle of momentum. We recruit people to an escalation, we then raise active popular support, and then absorb people back into the movement. So, having a clear structure within our local team and within Tomorrow Movement is really important so that we actually have a way to bring new people in. So, structure is a really significant part of the Tomorrow Movement DNA. Structure and culture is its own circle. And having really clear structure is really important for a few different reasons. So, having a clear structure does a few things. So, the first one is that it makes sure that we have a unified direction and we can respond quickly to movements. Within Tomorrow Movement, if we know that I have a local team leader and we all work together towards some kind of common campaign goal that we have in our local team. We know what all the different roles are. We know where the strategy comes from. We know who's making certain decisions. Then if there's some kind of moment that pops up or opportunity that pops up, then we can respond quickly. And we know that if it's in alignment with the direction that we're headed or the thing that we're working towards, then all right, let's go do it. So it helps us work really efficiently and work together. The second thing having a clear structure does is it makes it really clear who can make what decisions. So you might have been in situations before or certain types of teams before where decisions get made and you're not really sure how they get made or who makes them. And that might feel a little bit confusing or disempowering, or maybe like you're not sure who you can give a certain piece of feedback to because you don't know who made that decision. We want to make it really explicit who's responsible for decision making, whether in a local team you have a process where you all vote on something, so you all have equal say, or maybe certain decisions have been delegated to people with specific roles. Your social media lead might have made a lot of decisions about social media. So if you have feedback or you have thoughts on some of the decisions they've made, then you know that you can go to them specifically. So having those decision-making structures be really transparent helps us with making sure that people are empowered and feeling heard and able to give their thoughts and feedback to certain decisions if they want to. The third thing that having a clear structure does is it empowers people across the movement. So we know that within Tomorrow Movement, if you're in a local team, you are empowered to make decisions that are relevant to your local team. I don't need to come in and tell you what to do or force you to do anything. I want you to be able to make those decisions yourself. And we really want to empower people all across, whether you're in a local team or some other kind of team, social media team, whatever it is, that you are able to, make decisions, work on projects, take leadership. So we're going to look a little bit about decentralized versus centralized movements so that we can understand where Tomorrow Movement stands. So on the screen, you'll see this spectrum. On the right, we have centralized movements, and on the left, we have examples of decentralized movements. So I'm going to explain those a little bit. So on the right, the example of kind of the most structured, centralized movement would be something like the army. So this is a structure that is super centralized, super rigid. We know that there are very clear hierarchies. It's probably really hard to move through those hierarchies. People probably aren't changing roles or teams super often. There is a really clear command. So if you are given orders from someone who's above you in that hierarchy, then you just go and do them. This means that decisions get made really fast and they go from being made to being acted on really quickly because of that centralized command and because people in the army do what they're told. On the far left, we have examples of decentralized movements. So this is kind of the opposite. So we're looking at things like Black Lives Matter, Free Palestine, School Strike for Climate, where they're kind of unified under this central banner and generalized thing or idea that they're all fighting for, all the different groups all across the world even. But there is not necessarily one group or person or team who is responsible for making all of the decisions or giving centralized command to any of the different groups who are working in these movements. So there's no one Black Lives Matter team who's like, okay, this is the campaign at the moment. Here's the actions that we're going to do. Here's the messaging right now. That just isn't really a thing for movements who are so big like these ones. They're kind of larger than life. They're so big that they couldn't even have one centralized team who makes these decisions. So movements like these are really powerful and energetic, but it also means that not everyone is working on the same thing at once. So there's kind of pros and cons to both ends of this spectrum. And as you can see, we've put Tomorrow Movement kind of right in the middle. We have kind of centralized command, we have a main group of people who makes big strategy decisions about what we're going to get up to in the next 6 to 12 months. We come up with a plan. We say, all right, here's the plan. Here are all the resources that we've made. Here is all the support that we're going to do for all the different teams who are within Tomorrow Movement. We also have decentralized components. So we have lots of different little local teams who take that strategy and say, okay, we're going to work on this strategy, but maybe we're going to change this bit. Instead of doing this action, we're going to do this action. Instead of doing that event, we're going to do this training. We're going to change that demand for this demand. Whatever it is, those local teams are kind of able to make it their own. And yeah, this is something that is encouraged because it's important for local teams to have their autonomy and make things work for their local context. And the thing that kind of holds us together the most is our principles as Tomorrow Movement. So something that we say sometimes is if you want to work on something and it is in alignment with the Tomorrow Movement principles, then go for it. Even if it is not necessarily the main strategy that Tomorrow Movement in general is working on. If it's in alignment with the principles, then go for it. So that is kind of what makes us sit right in the middle of this spectrum that we've made. Once again, none of these ends of the spectrum are better than the other. This is just a way of understanding where Tomorrow Movement sits in terms of being centralized versus decentralized. So now that you kind of understand how Tomorrow Movement structure works in general, let's talk specifically about all the different ingredients that make a strong team. When we're building a strong team, we want to do these 5 things. We want to be really explicit about the norms and the principles. We want to have really clear structure and roles. We want to be outwards focused. We grow through taking actions, and we step other people up into leadership. So I'm going to get into these 5 things a little bit more. Be explicit about norms and principles. We do this by using and modeling our movement principles. We make and revisit norms at all of our meetings and actions. So norms are essentially a list of how we behave and how we show respect to each other. For example, put your hand up when you want to speak. We want to have really clear norms at meetings to make sure that everyone is actually given the space they need and everyone is feeling respected. Yeah, we invite people to things that we do like DNA trainings and town halls and other things that kind of reflect our principles as a movement. Speaking of our principles, here is that list of the Tomorrow Movement principles. We have this list of 12 principles. So when you're thinking about, oh, like I want to work on this action or I want to run this training, then have a look. If it is in alignment with these principles, then that probably isn't a Tomorrow Movement action. That doesn't mean you can't do it. That just means maybe don't do it with the Tomorrow Movement banner. But if you are in alignment with these principles, then you're good to go. Grab a Tomorrow Movement shirt, grab a Tomorrow Movement banner, have fun. Really get to know these principles and think about how you can actually enact them in your local team. So we learn and grow together. How do we embody that as a principle? We take initiative. How can we encourage that in our local team? We are a community. How can we make it feel like we're a community? Something else that we do in our local teams to reflect our principles is something called radical candor. It's really important for us to be able to be honest and give, direct feedback and give honesty to other people in our teams. That's how we build trust and vulnerability with each other. And this is kind of a axis that shows where something like radical candor stands in comparison to other ways of communication. So, for example, if I'm in some kind of meeting and someone's fly is down, radical candor would be if I lean over to them and I say, hey, your fly is down. So I'm not really exposing them. I'm not making things super uncomfortable for everyone in the group, but I'm being honest with them. Even if it's a little bit uncomfortable, I'm telling them what they need to hear. We have obnoxious aggression on this lower half, which is where instead of whispering, I might stand up in the meeting and shout, hey, look, their fly is down. And that is an example of like candor. It's honesty, but it's not really the kindest thing that we want to do. It's not really looking after that person. And then on the left, we have both of these examples where we're kind of staying quiet and we're worried about speaking up. So on the top left, we have ruinous empathy. So we're kind of silent and I'm like, oh no, like they might be a bit embarrassed. And I'm just worried about their feelings. And then on the bottom left, we have manipulative insincerity. So instead of worrying about their feelings, I'm just sitting there and I'm like, oh man, I'm so uncomfortable. And I'm just thinking about my own feelings. So those are things that we don't want to do. Within Tomorrow Movement, we want to do this top right option. So radical candor. I want to do the kind thing of letting this person know that their fly is down, telling them the thing that they need to hear, but not really doing it in a way that's embarrassing or mean. Radical candor is something that is really important to us as a movement. The second ingredient that makes a strong team is having really clear structure and roles. So we can do this by having similar recurring roles. So something like a coordinator, an organizer, someone who's in charge of digital things or social media. We know that these roles are probably going to exist in any kind of project that we're doing. We also want to make it really clear who is in the core group. So that doesn't mean that we aren't growing or welcoming in new people, but it means that we're really clear about who feels responsibility for getting tasks done. So you might find within a team, there's kind of a general team of lots of people who want to help out with something. And then maybe there's a core team who are like coordinating the whole thing or like kind of responsible for every part of it. And having that smaller core team is really helpful so that we have some kind of clear decision-making process that is a bit more fast and efficient, and we have people who have oversight of everything. And the third thing we want to do is have easy roles for new people to step into. So you might want to have action-specific roles or meeting-specific roles. If there's a new person, I might say, hey, can you bring some snacks to the meeting? Or, hey, can you take some photos at this action that we're doing? I want to have really easy things that I can ask a completely new person to do so that they feel empowered and they feel excited and like they have a reason for being there, but are not overwhelming them on the first thing that they're doing. Let's look at this way of splitting up work. Up the top, we have a lead. For any kind of project, there is generally only one lead. So this is the person who takes kind of ultimate responsibility for planning, strategizing, delegating out all of the tasks. This person is not necessarily responsible for doing all of the work in the plan. So leading on something doesn't mean that you do all of the work. It just means that you're responsible for all of the outcomes and you have oversight of everything that's happening, and maybe you've made the plan. Below that, we have the support person. So this is the person who works with the lead to help make the plan. So this is a good role for people to learn how to do a new task. So this support person is kind of like the lead person's right hand. You know, they're kind of working alongside the lead to help get things done. Maybe they aren't quite as confident, or maybe they are. And they are helping with making that plan and they're helping with delegating things out. And then on this kind of third rung below that, we have a helper, or probably a lot of different helpers. So this is just a person who helps do a part of the work, taking on specific tasks or projects. There can be as many helpers as needed. So within a team, you'll probably have one lead, one or two supports, and then a bunch of helpers. And those are the people who get delegated to. So if the lead and the support are responsible for making the plan and delegating out all of the work, then the helpers are the ones who say, oh, yep, I'll do that task, I'll do that task, I'll take responsibility for this specific thing. A different way to break up how those hierarchies work is this framework called RACI for project or task management. Once again, this is a way of breaking up those different levels of leadership. Up the top, we have the person who is responsible for something. So this is the person who actually carries out the process or task. They're responsible for actually getting the job done. Below that, we have the people who are accountable. So this is the person who is ultimately accountable for a process or task being completed appropriately. The person up the top who's responsible, they are accountable to this person. On the rung is someone who is consulted. So these are people who are not directly involved with carrying out the task, but they might be consulted. So maybe they're stakeholders, or maybe they're experts in whatever's happening. Maybe they've done it before. Maybe they will be affected by, you know, whatever the outcome of this project or decision is. And they definitely need to be consulted on whatever project you're working on. And then below that, we have the people who are informed. So these are just people who receive output from the process or task. They have a need to stay informed. So maybe they aren't doing any of the work. They aren't even necessarily being consulted. We're not necessarily asking for their opinion, but we're just letting them know, hey, this is how this thing went. These are the decisions that have been made. This is how this process is going. So this is a second way that we can break up how structures and hierarchies work in our teams when we're working on some kind of project. Within our team, we need to actually be able to recruit new people into our team. Here is a list of the things that we might need to do in order to recruit into our team. So the first one being, we want to get really clear on the skills that we need. Yeah, explaining, oh, we have a gap here in our team. We need someone to step up who has photography skills. The second thing we want to do is we want to be really clear with what the work and commitment will look like. So if I'm talking to a new person, I want to say, hey, we're working on this action. So it's going to mean that we're kind of busy for the next 3 weeks or so until the action happens. And we meet every week on this day at this location. So I want to be really explicit about what that's going to look like so someone new knows what they're stepping into. Then I want to do a call out to our kind of base or any friends that I want to recruit and ask for people to get in touch. So I might send an email out to our full mailing list in a certain location or all of the active people in a certain location. I might send a message in my local team group chat, whatever platform that's on. Then I want to give people a ring and get some kind of commitment. So sending a text or an email is an effective way to get out information and kind of, get along some people who are really keen, but something that is really effective for getting new people involved is actually having a phone call or maybe in-person conversation. And getting to know them, get some kind of commitment, talk about what you're actually working on, get to know them as a person. That is the most effective way to get some kind of commitment out of someone. If you think that this person maybe isn't a good fit, then you can also tell them no, or you can talk about finding another role for them. Then, once you've given them a ring, you want to organize a first meeting with them. So that could be a relational meeting where you're meeting in person and chatting and getting to know them properly, or that could just be inviting them to a local team meeting itself. This third ingredient of things that we want to do to make really strong teams is be outwards focused. So this means that we're thinking about how we're perceived by new people or people who aren't within our movement yet. So we do this by avoiding in-jokes and using specific kind of activist language or referring to past things that our group has done, especially without explaining it. So I don't want my team to feel like a clique where if you're not my best friend, then you're kind of going to be excluded and you're not going to get all the references. And when I'm going to explain things to you, we're just going to talk about stuff you don't understand. That's not a nice feeling. We want to think about if our group is homogenous or all the same in regards to gender, race, orientation, class, anything, any part of identity. If your group kind of all is the same, then you want to think about why that might be the case. Maybe you've done all your recruitment from one area or from one friend group or from one specific kind of, university or class or something like that. And think about what you can do to make your team safe for people who are maybe not from that same identity that you are, and how you can actually invite people in. And we also want to make sure that decisions are made when everyone is there and when decision can be recorded. So within our team, we want to try and make decisions when everyone is there, but when that can't happen, like still making sure that it's written down somewhere and it's really explicit so that someone who missed a meeting or missed a conversation or someone who's completely new who's coming in can go and look through maybe your old meeting minutes or whatever you have and understand what decisions are made and kind of where you are. So this is a model that gives us an idea about how we make decisions within Tomorrow Movement. So basically, we're looking at someone who has an idea or they bring forward some kind of proposal. They say, oh, I want to work on this thing. I think we should work on this thing. So then the people with expertise or who are affected by this decision are asked for their advice. So if I'm bringing an idea to a local team, then I want to talk to everyone in that local team and get their thoughts. I probably also want to talk to the opinion of people who are affected by or have some level of expertise in the proposal I'm bringing forward. Then after that, the proposal is maybe adjusted based on advice. And then after doing that, I would communicate the decision to the rest of the group and actually make it happen. So this advice model is in place so that we actually have the autonomy to do things that we want to do while also making sure that voices who need to be heard are still heard. So we don't necessarily need permission from every single person. We just want to make sure that people who will be affected by the thing that you're working on actually get a say in it, and then you get the autonomy to work on whatever thing you want to work on. The fourth ingredient of things that make a strong team is that we grow through taking action. We do this by trying to invite people to actions, not meetings, but often we find that actions are more energetic or more fun. So good to invite new people to. We want to have a plan for at least 2 actions ahead so that you always have things to invite people to. So when I say actions, also referring to things like a training or a town hall event or some kind of community event, any outward facing event. So I want to have a plan for at least two ahead so that there's always something I can invite people to. So, oh, I want to invite you to the action next week. Oh, you can't make it. Can you make it to the training that's happening in 2 weeks instead? Oh, you can't make it to that. Well, do you want to come to the movie screening we're having 3 weeks after that? We also want to make sure that meetings are about organizing how we're going to take action and we're not just meeting for the sake of it. So we want our meetings to feel productive because new people coming in want to feel like it's a good use of their time. So we want to use our meetings to talk about what we're doing or making some kind of plan or working on something so that there's a way that new people can feel it is a good use of their time and like they have something that they can or should contribute. The fifth thing that we want to do is we step people into leadership. So we do this by making it really clear what opportunities there are to step up. I want to be really explicit about like, these are the roles that exist, or these are the projects that we're working on. Here are the different ways that you could help out and get involved and step further up in leadership. We want to identify potential leaders who might pop up. So some new person might come along who seems really excited and really keen. And if I notice that, then I want to invest in a relationship with them and really intentionally ask them to step up. We can have a one-on-one or a relational conversation with someone. So this is where I say, hey, let's have a relational meeting or let's go have a coffee. And then we have a chat and we really take the time to properly get to know each other and build a really high level of trust so that then we can work together a bit more effectively. And we do have some kind of underlying level of trust that's really important. We want to ask a new person to take on some kind of task. So whether it's something small, like can you bring snacks to the meeting, to maybe something a bit bigger if they're really keen. Do you want to help take minutes? Do you want to help facilitate this part of the meeting? Do you want to speak about this project that you want to do? Whatever it is. And we also really try to train and do some skill sharing. So within Tomorrow Movement, we run lots and lots of different trainings, both online and in person, because we really want any of the skills and any of the knowledge that we've managed to acquire, we want that to be out there. We want more people to know more things. We want lots of people to have the skills that are necessary to organize in their communities. So we run lots of trainings within Tomorrow Movement, and that's a really helpful way to step people up into leadership because then they actually have some skills that they can use. So let's talk a bit more about asking people to take on a task. Usually, if work isn't getting done, it's a problem with delegation. So, have you actually given someone everything that they need to know? Sometimes we might say, hey, can you bring snacks to the meeting? But maybe they don't have all the information they need to know in order to do that. So, I want to give them some context. What is the overall project that this is a part of? I want to talk about the overarching campaign that's being worked on and then the specific event, and then, kind of go into all the context that is relevant. I want to talk about the purpose of the task, why it's important, why they should actually do it, why it's a good use of their time. I want to talk about the quality, so how much effort they should put in, how good it has to be. Should they spend $100 on snacks for the meeting, or can they just bring a bag of chips they have in their cupboard? I want to talk about quantity. How much or how many snacks? Are they going to be 100 people? Are they going to be 20 people? I should tell them that information if they don't have it already. Do they have all the resources that they need? Do they need support with money, people, time, materials? Do they know what all of those things are that they can use, that they have access to? What resources can I actually offer them to support them? Timeline. When does it actually need to be done by? And at what stage am I going to check in with them? So I'm going to text you in a week to see if you've gotten the snacks yet. I want to clarify. Say it back to me. What do you need to do? This is something that is really helpful if I ask someone to do something and then I say, hey, just checking your understanding of what your task is. Can you tell me what your next steps are? And getting them to repeat it back to me really helps with actually pointing out any things they aren't fully sure of or anything that I might have missed. And then I also want to give them some feedback. So I want to say, hey, good job. Thank you so much for doing that. How can I support you better next time? Was there anything that got in the way for you? Did anything not come out as planned? Giving that really helpful feedback and encouragement is really important for supporting new people to take on a task and encouraging them to do it again next time. Let's talk about identifying leadership. There are lots of different types of leaders and leadership styles that might exist within a movement, and identifying great leaders that can build our movement is essential because our movement is built on leaders. Here are some general ideas to look out for. When you find good leaders, step them up into positions where they can shine and build up others. New leaders, we want to think about how do they work? So someone who says they're going to do something and actually goes and does it is really important. We want to know that they think about the group and what people's needs are and they're observant. So if we're noticing that they are someone who really cares about other people and is really curious about other people and wants to help make the group a better place to be, then that is really good. They have a story about why they care. So I want to be able to ask, hey, why are you doing this work? Why do you want to be here? And they have some kind of story that shows why they care. And that kind of links to the next one, that they have a fire in their belly. So I can sense that they're passionate. They want to be here. They want to invest in the space. They want to learn. Having that fire is really important for people to keeping people motivated. We want to know that they have good emotional intelligence, so they have a sense of self-awareness. They can understand where other people are coming from. They have empathy for other people. They're able to keep kind of balanced and level-headed in case some kind of conflict comes up. We want to know that they have a strong interest in growing and improving, because we know when we come to this movement, even when we are leaders, that we have so much more that we need to learn. We have so much more that we have to grow. And when people are aware of that fact and aware that they have more to learn, that is such a positive thing. So these are some of the things that we want to look out for when we are identifying leadership in new people that we really want to invest a lot of time into. And this last quote I want to end on: if you want to build a ship, don't herd people and assign them tasks and work, but rather teach them to long for the endless immensity of the sea. But essentially, this is saying you want to sell people on the vision, the world that you're fighting for, or the idea of the project that you're working on, what the campaign is, and what you're kind of working towards, not just saying, hi, can you do this task? You want them to be motivated by the thing that you're fighting for, that will keep them so much more accountable to doing whatever task you've asked them to do. So that is what I want to end on, and that is how we build strong teams.